The Galactic Survival Academy floated in the void between star systems, a massive station where species from across the known universe sent their best and brightest to learn the arts of endurance, combat, and survival. For 3 cycles, Nancy Martinez had been the only human in attendance, and she'd made quite the reputation for herself, though not always the kind. The instructors appreciated Instructor Vexither, a towering craft alien with chitinous armor and compound eyes that could detect movement in 16 different spectrums, stood before the assembled class of 47 cadets. His mandibles clicked with barely concealed irritation as he surveyed the group today. He announced, his voice reverberating through his thorax, "We study the Quellan Fang Serpent, one of the deadliest creatures in Sector 7. Its venom can drop a full-grown Brunther in under 3 seconds. Nancy leaned back in her seat, arms crossed, a slight smirk playing at the corner of her mouth. Beside her, Parker Chen, the second human to join the academy just 2 months prior, shifted nervously. He'd learned that Nancy's smirks usually preceded something memorable. Vexither activated the containment field, and a creature materialized in the center of the arena. It was perhaps 2 meters long, scaled in iridescent patterns that shifted between purple and green, with fangs that dripped a viscous amber fluid onto the reinforced floor, where it sizzled ominously. "Observe," Vexither commanded, producing a synthetic tissue sample. He allowed a single drop of venom to contact it. The tissue blackened instantly, dissolving into a puddle of organic soup within seconds. Gasps erupted from the Centaurian cadets. The Veldorian twins clutched each other in fear. Even the usually stoic Graxian warrior caste members leaned back in their seats. Nancy laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or a suppressed giggle. It was a full, genuine laugh that echoed through the training hall like a bell. Vexither froze mid-gesture. Every eye in the room turned to the human female. The Quellan Fang Serpent itself seemed to pause, its heat-sensing pits focusing on this strange creature that found humor in the presence of death incarnate. "Cadet Martinez." Vexither's voice dropped to a dangerous frequency. "Perhaps you'd care to explain what you find so amusing about a creature that has claimed the lives of over 400 sentients in the last standard cycle." Nancy stood, still grinning. "With all due respect, Instructor, you call that venom?" The silence that followed was absolute. Parker closed his eyes, already knowing where this was headed. What?" Vexither's mandibles splayed in confusion, an expression his species reserved for encounters with the truly incomprehensible. "Don't get me wrong," Nancy continued, walking down the steps toward the containment field. "It's definitely dangerous, impressive even. But on Earth, we've got stuff that makes that look like a mild irritant." "Nancy," Parker warned quietly, but she was already on a roll. "Take the box jellyfish," she said, beginning to count on her fingers. "Venom so painful that human victims have been known to go into shock and drown before they can even swim to shore. Or the inland type in one bite contains enough venom to kill 100 full-grown humans. The Brazilian wandering spider, the stonefish, the blue-ringed octopus." She paused, noticing the increasingly horrified expressions around her. "Should I go on?" Vexither's exoskeleton had taken on a pale hue. "You're telling me your homeworld harbors multiple species with venom of this magnitude?" "Oh, that's just the venom," Nancy said brightly. "We haven't even talked about the microorganisms. Rabies, tetanus, necrotizing fasciitis, Ebola." "Nancy," Parker finally interjected, standing up. "Maybe we should wait. The best part," Nancy interrupted, turning back to Vexither. "You know what the most dangerous animal on Earth is? Mosquitoes. Tiny little flying insects. They kill about 700,000 humans every year through disease transmission. We literally have to sleep under nets to avoid being assassinated by bugs." A Centaurian cadet fainted. The medical drone hovering nearby rushed over. "And here's the thing," Nancy continued, warming to her subject. "We live there. That's our home. We evolved in that death world, surrounded by all of this, and we not only survived, we thrived. We became the dominant species. We turned those venoms into medicines. We studied the diseases and created vaccines. That Quellan Fang Serpent, beautiful creature, truly. But I had a friend back in Australia who kept a dozen snakes more dangerous than that as pets." Vexither sat down heavily, something Parker had never seen an instructor do during a lesson. Pets, he repeated weakly. Steve was a weird guy, Nancy admitted with a shrug. But yeah, Parker decided it was time for damage control. He walked down to join Nancy, addressing the class with a more diplomatic tone. What Nancy is trying to say, perhaps not very tactfully, is that humans have a unique perspective on danger. Our evolutionary environment was unusually hostile, Vexither echoed, his voice hollow. Cadet Chen, your homeworld is classified as a Class 12 death world. That's the highest classification that can theoretically support complex life. Are you telling me this is normal? For your species? Parker nodded. We didn't have a choice. It was adapt or die. Nancy picked up the thread again, her tone more serious now. That's why we're here, isn't it? Not because we're stronger than everyone else or smarter, but because we're stubborn. When you've spent 100,000 years living on a planet actively trying to kill you, you develop a certain resilience. She looked at the Quellan Fang serpent, which had coiled defensively in its containment field. This serpent is a product of its environment, just like we are. It evolved Venom because it needed an advantage. We evolved intelligence, tool use, and cooperation because we needed every advantage we could get. That's not something to laugh at, it's something to respect. Vexither slowly stood, his composure returning. A surprisingly mature observation, Cadet Martinez. Perhaps you should have led with that rather than the laughter. Where's the fun in that, sir? Nancy grinned. Despite himself, Vexither's mandibles clicked in what Parker had learned to recognize as amusement. Very well. Since you find the Quellan Fang serpent so underwhelming, perhaps you'd like to volunteer for tomorrow's practical exercise? What's tomorrow? Nancy asked, suddenly wary. Unassisted navigation through a Vixillian thorn forest. The thorns carry a paralytic agent that Nancy raised her hand. Let me guess. They're not as bad as the Jimpy plant from Australia? Vexither's eyes seemed to glaze over. I'm going to access your planetary database tonight, and I suspect I'm going to regret it. Probably, Parker agreed sympathetically. As the class was dismissed, cadets gave Nancy and Parker a wide berth, whispering among themselves about the nightmarish death world called Earth. Nancy caught fragments, sleeping under nets, hundreds of deadly species, mosquito assassins. Parker fell into step beside her. You know, one of these days you're going to give Vexither a heart attack, or whatever Krath aliens have. Nancy laughed again, the same uninhibited sound that had started it all. Come on, Parker. Where's your sense of adventure? Besides, wait until they learn about Australia. I haven't even mentioned the drop bears yet. There's no such thing as drop bears, Nancy. I know that. You know that. But do they know that? Parker sighed, but he was smiling. In a galaxy full of species that had evolved on relatively peaceful worlds, under stable suns, with predictable ecosystems, humans were the chaos factor, the survivors of a world that had forged them in fire, venom, disease, and catastrophe. And somehow, improbably, that made them exactly what the galaxy needed. Even if Nancy did have a terrible habit of terrifying their instructors in the process,